Good evening and welcome to the City of Roswell Open Forum Mayor and City Council meeting for November the 1st, 2022. I'm Mayor Kurt Wilson. Apologize for starting 15 minutes late. We just finished our 10th of, I believe, 10 Bond road shows, so we apologize for being late getting here to the chambers and joining you. Tonight, I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues and council members present. Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Lee Hills, and Councilmember Dr. Peter Vanstrom. Both Councilmember Michael Palermo and Councilmember William Mortland have excused absences. At this time, I'd like to call our City of Roswell Fire Department Chaplain, Dory Griggs, to the front for the invocation and moment of silence.
Please join me. Holy One, we give thanks for so many blessings we have received. Tonight, we are thankful for the opportunity to gather as a community, to listen to concerns and hear feedback. We acknowledge the service and sacrifice of our military veterans. We give thanks for the residents who have participated in the Citizens Police Academy and the officers who organized and led the program. Please watch over all our first responders, police, fire, 911 communications, and emergency medical services. Keep them safe as they work to keep our community safe. Please guide our city leadership as they hear concerns and feedback and discern their steps forward. Grant us all traveling mercies as we head to our respective homes later this evening. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain Griggs. At this time, I have the great pleasure of introducing Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame Class of 2019 member and esteemed leader in our community and Roswell Rotary Club member, among other great organizations. I'd like to ask Roger Wise Jr. to come forward and lead us in the pledge.
Folks, freedom is not free. Safety is not free. All the veterans, please raise your hands. We salute you. Thank you for your service to our country. All the first responders, please raise your hands. We salute you and thank you. When you see a veteran, you walk up to them and say, thank you for your service to our country. See a first responder, you walk up and say, thank you for your service to our community. Remember, freedom and safety is not free. I want each of you to join these great patrons, these great public servants, pledging allegiance to the flag of the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Always.
Once a sergeant, always a sergeant.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. We always appreciate your great leadership and reminding us of simple truths. Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is the mayor's report. My first item is a reading of a proclamation for the Esteemed Veteran of Roswell Award to United States Army World War II veteran Corporal Robert E. Cargill. Last Tuesday, October 25th, Councilmember Lee Hills and I attended Corporal Robert Cargill's 100th birthday celebration at the Vickery Rose Retirement Resort. At that birthday celebration, he was also honored with the reading of the Esteemed Veteran of Roswell Proclamation. He cannot attend tonight, but we have the video from that morning and would like to show it to you. Thank you again, Corporal Robert Cargill, for your service to our country. So a proclamation from the office of the mayor. Corporal Robert E. Cargill, World War II esteemed veteran of Roswell. Whereas in 1942, Robert E. Cargill was living with his parents and sisters in New York City and enlisted in the Army Corps of Engineers. He felt strongly at this young age to be part of defending our country. Pearl Harbor was something he could not ignore, and the unrest in Europe. His two best friends enlisted, and he joined alongside them to serve before the war was over. Bob received his first uniform at Fort Dix, New Jersey. He was skilled in the arts, and that is why he was selected for camouflage construction duties. He traveled to Chicago by train, and then on to Camp Livingston, Louisiana. And there, he received his camouflage and general training with his battalion. Part of the training also consisted of rifle training and the use of gas mask. Bob was the youngest man in his battalion, so he was affectionately named Junior by his fellow soldiers. And whereas after training at Camp Livingston, the unit returned to Fort Dix, New Jersey. His battalion was not told of their destination, and soon thereafter, the troops were transported to Europe. They traveled across the Atlantic on a British ship, and by the time they reached Gibraltar and the Mediterranean, they knew that they were headed for North Africa. German U-boats were trolling the Gibraltar area, and they had to have periods of silence and wear life preservers in order to protect their secure locations. Their ship docked in Iran in North Africa, and they later went further east in North Africa to use their skills in preparing camouflage landing craft and other equipment deceptions. Bob's battalion was part of the August 1944 invasion of the Southern France campaign and was assigned to proceed through France and part of Germany. And whereas during the battalion's travels in France, they went into a huge warehouse of unknown contents. To their surprise, the warehouse had stacks of brie cheese and superb French wines. It was then decided by unanimous vote to liberate the wine and cheese, compliments of the German soldiers who have fled the territory. And whereas the history and orders carried out by Bob's battalion was as follows. Subsequently, after the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, the battalion served as the nucleus for the new engineer camouflage units and adopted the motto, "We conceal." The battalion was redesigned on April 1st, 1942, as the 84th Engineer Camouflage Battalion. During World War II in April 1943, the unit saw action first in Italy and then in southern France and concluded in Central Europe toward the end of the war. During World War II, the battalion was awarded significant recognition for participating in campaigns including southern France, the Rhineland, Ardennes-Alsace, and Central Europe. And whereas in 1945, the Army Corps of Engineers bestowed and honored Corporal Robert E. Cargill with the following medals: the European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Service Medal, the World War II Service Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, and rifle certification. Whereas, now therefore I, Kurt M. Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby name World War II veteran, Corporal Robert E. Cargill, an esteemed veteran of Roswell, and call upon all our citizens to recognize his outstanding service to our country, our community, and that there is no higher calling than those who have served in the United States Armed Forces. The City of Roswell would also like to wish Bob a happy and healthy 100 years young birthday on November 23rd, 2022.
Who is it?
You're all wonderful.
Would you like to say a few words to everybody?
Huh? Would you like to say a few words?
I don't know what to say. You are all so wonderful. I'm speechless. I'm so appreciative of every one of your beautiful faces, thinking positive things. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. I love you.
Wow, those are great words. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So we're very privileged tonight to have Corporate Cargill's daughter, Colleen, and her husband, Doug. And so, Colleen and Doug, would you like to come up and say a few words?
I'm Colleen Papsiak. I'm Bob's oldest child. I just want to thank everybody so much for honoring my dad's World War II service and celebrating his upcoming birthday. It was a total surprise to him. He didn't know it was happening. So, but I have a special thank you for Robin, who created that impressive proclamation, and for Mayor Wilson for you coming to Vickery Rose and creating such a special moment for my dad and for our family. As I told you, was surprised. He was overwhelmed. He was emotional and somewhat speechless, which is entirely not him. We thought we might have the opposite problem where he would talk too much, but I think because it was a surprise, he was taken aback a little bit. But he never ever really talked about the war at all. Growing up, we knew he served in World War II, but I think typical of his generation of war veterans, we never heard much at all. And it wasn't until my son and I actually took a school trip to France and went to Normandy and brought back a replica of a French map from 1944 that he actually sat down and I think started to recreate some of the memories that he had, and kind of sort of showed us how he marched up through France and up into Germany, where he was part of liberating some of the concentration camps, which still to this day he will not speak about. So when I think about what I was doing at age 19 and in college and thinking about the next football game, and when I think about what his generation of young men did for the United States, for our country, and the love that they had for the United States of America is just truly amazing to me. So. But thank you all so much. I think the one interesting story I do have from my dad was when he actually came back to New York and returned to his family. One of the first few days he was home, it rained. And he talked about being in his room, and he said it just didn't feel right. He said, was very unsettling to me with the rain. And he said, and I realized what it was is that I was not hearing the rain on my tent. And so he said, I went out to the porch and I could hear the rain hitting the roof of the porch, and I was able to relax and fall asleep. So you have anything else that you would like to add?
No, I'm not going to add anything to that, okay? You did great. She was so nervous. But I'm just along for the ride. But I'm a semi-retired pediatrician, and I've been kind of his once-a-week visitor to adjust his medications and to make sure that he gets a boost every day and that he gets his sleep. He sleeps 9 hours each night, and he's on a strict routine just like a child. I'm a pediatrician. and I know how to take care of older people too. Roger?
And I just want to say thank you. I mean, what you guys did for our family speaks volumes about the city of Roswell and the community and the service that you have to its neighbors and citizens and everything. You guys are just amazing, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for making something so special for our family. We really appreciate it.
Guys, stay right here. I think they want to get a quick picture with you. Come on down, council. Yeah, please, Doug, stay right here with us. So, one of the great stories about Bob Cargill, and you can see it in someone who's had a lot of experience with veterans, different conflicts, is the understated nature of men like Bob Cargill. His understatement is overwhelming. Customary. That's what's so great about these great people, just regular people, and who make up this great country and have served it so well. All right, Christine. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Doug. And just, I guess, one little more hand of applause for Bob Cargill, so maybe he'll see this. Well, the next item on the mayor's report is a very, very, very special proclamation. So I guess I'm going to come back down there, so bear with me. This is our last council meeting before Veterans Day, and so we thought we'd do something special. We thought we'd do a proclamation from the office of the mayor for Veterans Day 22 for all of the great people in our city, staff, who are veterans. So this proclamation's for you. Proclamation, Office of the Mayor, Veterans Day 2022. Whereas in 1921, the unknown soldier was buried on a Virginia hillside in Arlington National Cemetery, overlooking the Potomac River in the city of Washington, D.C. The site of this burial in Arlington National Cemetery symbolizes the dignity and reverence of Americans' veterans. And whereas these memorial gestures took place in England and France on November the 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebrated ending of World War I at 11 a.m. on November the 11th, 1918. And whereas on May 13th, 1938, Congress declared that the 11th day of November each year will be a legal holiday, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace, and a day of celebration to honor Americans' veterans for their patriotism, the love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. And whereas Veterans Day is a day to thank our veterans for their service to our country and acknowledge their contributions to our national security. We would like to honor those who have served and sacrificed for our country today, November the 11th, and every day. And whereas the City of Roswell would like to thank and acknowledge our employees who are veterans, and an extended appreciation to those who continue to serve in the reserves. Now, therefore, I, Curtin Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2022 as Veterans Day in the City of Roswell and urge all citizens to recognize the sacrifices and dedication of our veterans and their families today and throughout the year. And I'd like to read all of the amazing veterans we have here. Christopher Archer, Robert Azteca, Sean Ballasty, Juan Banks, Eric Blazer, John Bowman, Aaron Boyd, Emil Broman, Zachary Brown, R. Browning, Adrian Bird, Mateus Cadwallader, Michael Carter, Nicholas Carter, Jesse Cash, Boyd Colley, Patrick Collier, Patrick Conaway, Milton Cotton, Derek Crowder, Taylor Davis, Theodore Desroras, Christopher Diss, Terry Dixon, Eric Dixon, Thomas Dunn, Jason English, Eric Evans, Christopher Evans, David Faraball, Marcos Fernandez, Mike Fink, Joseph Fortunato, Geoffrey Garcia, Joseph Gates, Ronald Gooden, Marcus Graham, Kevin Green, Jimmy Gregory, William Hood, Antoine Hughes, Jacob Hughes, Jeffrey Ives, Gary Johnson, Patrick Kelly, Ward Kelly, Philip Kutnock, Arthur Lewis, Jason Lewis, Stephanie Litvin, Cody Long, Jacob Long, Jamie Mignon, Desiree Mathis, Willie McCluskey, David McNamara, Kendrick McRae, Joseph Moss, Guy Peters, Nicholas Pizzello, Rico Poole, Michael Porterfield, Destiny Presswood, Deandra Pritchett, Logan Proctor, Gerald Reisinger, Jonathan Richards, Linnea Rivard, Sergio Rossi, Roberto Sanchez, Samantha Saunders, Stanley Scholes, Michael Shrout, Pearson Singleton, Nathaniel Smith, Christopher Smith, Douglas Smith, Stephen Stoner, Kristen Thomasberger, Jason Vell, Joel Vasquez, Christian Villacorta, Michael Wells, Ronnie Wilkes, Samuel Wolfson, Alan Yano. These all great patriots have served our military and all people who work in the city, so please give them a round, warm of applause. Obviously, thank you to each one of those amazing people for their service to our country. Regarding Veterans Day, the City of Roswell will have a Veterans Day program on Friday, November the 11th at Roswell Area Park. There will be a breakfast for veterans and their families from 8 to 9:30 a.m. from 8 to 9:30 a.m. at the Bill Johnson Community Activity Building. Breakfast is from the Flying Biscuit. Sign up for the veterans and their families can be done by going to the City of Roswell website at roswellgov.com. There will be an honor walk to the lake at 9:30 a.m., and the veteran ceremony honoring our veterans will be at the Roswell Area Park Pond at 10 a.m. So if you know a veteran in our city, please have them go to roswellgov.com, sign up, come join us, come to breakfast from 8 to 9:30 a.m. at the Bill Johnson Center. Be part of the walk from 9:30 to 10, and we'll have a ceremony at 10 at Roswell Area Park Pond on Veterans Day, November 11th. Please join us. The next item under the mayor's report is the recognition of the Roswell Police Department's Citizen Police Academy alumni from 2020 to 2022. Chief Conroy, would you please come up and elaborate on this great group of people?
If I can get the CPA alumni to please stand for me. All right, Mayor, City Council, good evening. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, we used to routinely recognize the graduates of the Citizens Police Academy. We are so happy to be renewing that tradition today. The Citizens Police Academy has been a part of our community relations since 1993. The program allows Roswell residents and business owners to learn about the police department, our mission, and the men and women who serve our community. It has become our most popular community relations program. It serves at the heart of 21st century policing. The CPA is a 10-week program. Each week, the Academy focuses on a different unit or division of the Roswell Police Department. All of our graduates also must complete a ride-along, either with a police officer or within our 911 communications center. Between 2020 and 2022, despite the pandemic, we held 6 Citizens Police Academy classes with 111 participants. Many of those CPA alumni have joined us here tonight, and we would like to recognize them for taking the time out of their busy schedules to learn about the Roswell Police Department. This 10-week commitment is about 3 to 3.5 hours each class, depending on how many questions they have. But it has become one of our most popular events. Our next Citizens Police Academy will start in mid-February 2023, and applications can be found on the Roswell Police Department Community Outreach webpage. Before we proceed, I would like to invite one of our alumni, Jim Clune, to just say a few words on behalf of our graduates. Jim.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. First, I would like to personally and publicly thank Officer Jennifer Bennett, Officer Tim Lupo, and Officer Keandra Pritchett for an outstanding job of putting together the Roswell Citizens Police Academy. For 10 weeks, Roswell citizens learned about the inner workings of our police department. The course was amazing. What our police department does on a daily basis is incredible. It starts with Major Greco and his staff in hiring and making sure candidates meet their standards. And if they do, then on to Lieutenant Holland and his people for truly extensive and intense training. Once the exhaustive training is complete, everyone hits the streets under Major Ratliff. From there, you could go to many different departments. This all falls under the exceptional leadership of Deputy Chief Rivard, and of course, the buck stops and lands on Chief Conroy's desk. And I can tell you, he hears and sees everything in this department. We met truly exceptional officers who day in and day out not only work to serve and protect our city, but they do it with exemplary pride and passion in representing the city of Roswell. From 911 Director John Przystrobowski, Sergeant Jim Van Alstyne, Major Noah Kaplan, and Lieutenant Jason Westcott. There are many, many more distinguished and worthy officers to mention, but time limits me. I can tell you that many of these officers are heroes, and though you cannot see them, they do wear capes. And on Friday evening, April 12th, 2013, many of our Roswell heroes stepped up and protected countless Roswell citizens. I personally had no idea the events of which I speak took place until this class. If you are unaware of the events on that happenings on that date, I strongly encourage you to research that date. I also fervently implore you, if you have not already, please plan on attending the next Roswell CPA. It is a free education and worth every minute you will invest in not only our Roswell Police Department, but in our community to which you serve. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Once they graduate, they have the opportunity to volunteer and serve our community in different ways by assisting the police department in various events. And you see many of them, their blue and their gray shirts when they show up at the events, that's what they're doing, is volunteering for our community. But thank you, thanks for recognizing these graduates, and thank each of you for taking the time out of your schedules to learn about your police department, learn about your community. I thank you.
Chief, I'm going to have everybody come up, take a picture with the council real quick. I'm sure they'd like that. Let's have everybody come up real quick.
Last photo.
Hey, Jim, how about up here?
Yep, Terrence is right up here on the stage in front of the dais. Yep, right up here. There's,
Yeah, I know. You got that. This? Yeah. Well, no, I was going to say you have the. Oh, okay, wait, that might work. This might work.
Then you can get them and then you miss the color.
Yeah.
Use of my walnuts, I'm so happy to assist.
If at all comfortable, please squish in just a little bit. And then like crop it.
Mayor, can I get you to scoot in just a little bit?
All right, just keep looking this way and smiling.
Y'all look beautiful.
Yes.
Perfect. Glad you have long arms. I know, it comes in handy.
Not quite. Okay. Well, the last item under the mayor's report is the upcoming events in the city of Roswell. You know, I've already mentioned the Veterans Day program on November the 11th. Please, all veterans, go there. Roswell Gov, family members of veterans here in Roswell, please go to roswellgov.com and sign up and be with us on Friday, November 11th at the Roswell Area Park. Some big news from us, also along the lines of announcements. The Christmas tree lighting will be held at the heart of Roswell Park on Canton Street from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday, December the 2nd, to kick off the holiday season. We'll be celebrating with Christmas carols, hot chocolate, fire pits and s'mores, a special reading of Twas the Night Before Christmas, and lighting of a 40-foot Christmas tree. We'll also have a special visit from Santa Claus, and we're doing something new and exciting at historic Town Square this year. The city is providing 36-foot Christmas trees for groups of individuals to decorate, but you have to apply and register to secure a tree. This is on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you're interested, the application is on the city's website, roswellgov.com. That's roswellgov.com. So please do that for the historic Town Square, 30 trees that will be there. As a reminder, early voting continues through November the 4th for the city's special election for filling the unexpired term of Roswell City Council Post 1 and for the 3 bond referendum questions and for the general election. You can also vote on Election Day, which is a week from today, next Tuesday. I also have 2 more very special announcements. We would like to introduce our new Transportation Director, Jeffrey Littlefield. Jeffrey just started yesterday, and we'd like to give him a warm welcome to Roswell. Somebody that's a fixture for us here around the council and staff is Kelly Rivers, our municipal complex officer. Well, Kelly and his wife just added a new member to their family. Olivia Ryan Rivers arrived on October 29th. She was 6 pounds, 10 ounces. Congratulations to the Rivers family. So, that being said, as the presiding officer of the meeting, I now have the great privilege of opening it up to open mic night. If you'd like to speak, it's open to Roswell residents. Please make sure you fill out a comment card so we have a record of all speakers at the meeting. Place the cards at the receptacle next to the podium. There is an allotted maximum of 5 minutes per each speaker. When you come forward, please state your name and where you live for the record. And at this time, I will begin to acknowledge people that would like to come address the council and the city. Yes, sir, up to the front. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank you, Mayor, and the council for...
Would you tell us who you are and where you live? I apologize.
My name is Tony Dunbar. I live at 1252 Warsaw Road.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, again, thank you, Mayor and council, for this opportunity to address my concern. Tomorrow marks 2 years to the day where I first engaged the city of Roswell and the council with the issue of the storm runoff for my subdivision. I represent the homeowners for Willowbrook subdivision on Warsaw Road. The problem has been we suffered a catastrophic flooding event 2 years ago. Now, to be honest, our issue started in the 1980s, the late 1980s. I won't go into the history, but in my research, I requested an open records request from the city of Roswell, and I received all of the documentation having anything to do with my subdivision. And from that, basically what has happened over 3 decades is with the growth of Roswell combined with the impervious surface throughout the city, an increased storm runoff, whatever's not absorbed in the city of Roswell ends up in my neighborhood. Now, my neighborhood was built, like I say, in the 1980s in 3 phases. Phases 1 and 2 were some luxury condos adjacent to my phase 3. Phase 3, before it was built, was a retention pond for phases 1 and 2. At that time, the builder was granted a building permit to build our homes. So our neighborhood has actually been flooding for 3 decades. And what has happened is that the storm pipe has eroded and failed, and so is no longer able to carry water. So because of that, we've had damages. We've had trees falling onto homes and vehicles. One of my neighbors' truck was totaled from a tree falling on it. And currently, right now, it's a serious matter. But for 29 of our homes, it's urgent, but it's not life-threatening. But one of my homeowners, his home is directly in the pathway of a gigantic sinkhole. And as it rains, as the storm runoff is causing that sinkhole to grow at a faster rate. And I have spoken with professional hydraulic engineers, and I have not contracted an engineering study. However, I have had a professional engineer videotape the internals of the storm pipe. I've got pictures, I've got videos, I've got 2 years worth of research. And I have, from the previous administration, I've got absolutely zero cooperation from that administration. I won't harp on that, I won't dwell on that. But here I am 2 years later. I was encouraged to re-engage with the council to see if I can get some cooperation for a remedy for our neighborhood.
Is Robin, are you still here? Okay. So, Tony, I'm gonna give a little homework to you, and Robin's gonna follow up with you. I'm gonna set up a meeting with you and myself, our Public Works Director, our City Attorney, and our City Administrator, and we'll set up a formal meeting here within the next 2 weeks. If you have time to come in and see us.
I will make time.
Okay, and with the liaison for Public Works, which will probably be Mike Palermo, and we'll all meet with you and sit down.
Mr. Palermo.
Okay. You'll have the City Administrator, Randy Knighton, City Attorney, Public Works Director, Sharon Izzo, perhaps the new Transportation Director in there, potentially myself, and probably the liaison for Public Works.
That would be wonderful.
Yes, sir. I thank you for coming, and we'll sit down and see what we can't discover together.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Council. Should I leave this here?
Yeah, right. Marley, you want it there? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, Robin, you make sure you get his contact information as well. Thank you, ma'am. All right, who's next? Ms. Barnes, come on up. Thank you. So, Ms. Barnes, for the public record, tell everybody who you are and where you live when you get up here. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Claire Barnes. I live at 19 Revival Street in Roswell. Okay, I represent the South Roswell Coalition. We as residents want to thank you for keeping your promise of forming a Roswell Transportation Advisory Board. Mayor and Council needs to go a step further by allowing them to have oversight of transportation projects. This is currently not happening. We do not think anyone has sat down to decide how RTAC fits into the big picture. We believe that RTAC needs to know what process and guidelines should be in place. In the current configuration, they are not as impactful as they could be. The Planning Commission seems to have a working process with Mayor and Council. From a residents' point of view, this does not seem to be the same for RTAC. Okay, we of South Roswell Coalition, we're hopeful that the formation of RTAC would help our community achieve the family community that the mayor campaigned on. We on the coalition have seen just the opposite. The approval of the Riverside being used for large trucks and improvements of the bridge will further erode our South Roswell community and will definitely not be, as mayor campaigned on, a family-friendly community. This is making South Roswell the bypass for heavy traffic from the north, going north towards the Roswell Canton Street area. The heavy trucks will come north on it, South Atlanta Street, turn left on Marietta Highway on their way to East Cobb. This unanimous approval by Mayor and Council was one more conscious decision to make South Roswell Historic District the bypass of Roswell. We were hopeful that RTAC would be able to avert further damage to our community by their input, but their input is not taken seriously and full steam ahead by RDOT and Mayor and Council. It breaks our heart that the mayor needs to stop using the campaign rhetoric of family-friendly community when it applies to South Roswell, because the historic district is going to be destroyed by this because of all the heavy traffic that's going to come from the Riverside community going north up at South Atlanta Street and the big trucks that are going to be allowed to come. And it's just beyond our comprehension, and it absolutely breaks our heart that our community is going to be destroyed by this decision. And we don't understand about how the mayor can consciously use the campaign rhetoric of family-friendly community, because it does not apply to South Roswell and Historic District. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Yes, ma'am. I see you in the back with the good-looking hat on.
Good evening, Janet Russell, Roswell resident. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Randy Knighton. Back in January of this year, someone knocked down a MARTA bus pole down by the river, and I reported it to RDOT, and I was told they'd look into it, and 8 months later, nothing had been done. Nothing. So I contacted Mr. Knighton, and the next day the pole was replaced. Thank you, Randy, for taking the time to do that. Since none of you take MARTA buses, no one gives a rat's you-know-what. I also want to thank Mr. Knighton for setting up a meeting with me for headquarters at MARTA. I'm filling you in as council members because I'm the one who's doing the work, and I'm glad to do it. God so loved the world, he did not send a committee to save it. I've decided that's what I'm going to do. RDOT has moved bus stops and removed them without permission from MARTA, without anybody knowing they were ever there, and a bus cannot stop where there is no bus stop. So I met again with the committee, and they came over here, and I showed them the missing bus stops. We're also going to be working on a few other projects to improve MARTA service in our community, and I will fill you in on that when the time is right. The bus shelter that's over here by Canton Street, which got destroyed by a truck, was down for a year, and thanks to Mr. Knighton and me, it got replaced so that the people that work on Canton Street have a respectable place to wait for public transportation. Just thought I'd fill you in. The Day of the Dead celebration this past weekend was very nice. The first year was a disaster. This year was much more respectful. I enjoyed it. I have a few suggestions as a meeting and event planner and as Hispanic. I would like to see the signage in Spanish. There was not one sign around this town in Spanish. Therefore, we had a lot of people, but the minority who was celebrating their culture weren't very well represented. They were few here. Also on the signs, which were very few, there was no time indicated as to what the time the event was being held. So you didn't know if it was 10 in the morning till 10 at night or 4 in the afternoon. We want everyone to feel welcome. It's a lovely event. The other thing is the ofrenda, which is the altar where you remember people. It would be nice if you invited the community to bring pictures of their loved ones and set them up. I did that last year with my mother, my father, my brother, my adopted daughter. It's why we have it. I would also like to see the Faces of War Memorial incorporated as an ofrenda, and people could bring photos of the friends and family and loved ones that they have lost who have fought for our country. It is our ofrenda 24/7, 365. I want to also say congratulations to getting the marquee lit, which is right out here that says Roswell Cultural Arts Center. It needed a light bulb, and it took 5 months. There's a joke in there somewhere. I offered to buy the light bulb, install the light bulb, and charge the city for a consultation fee and installation fee, but they reneged on that, and they installed the light bulb themselves for 5 months. Next door, we have the Southern Post going up, which is, as we can all see, a behemoth. Since none of you were around when that was approved, just want you to know that in 2016, the city paid $4.85 million cash for it from our Solid Waste Management Fund, and we sold it in 2019 for $5 million, so we made about $100,000 or maybe $80,000, but we really didn't because we lost all the taxes on it for 5 years since the government now owned it, and we lost all the interest on the money. We then gave the, quote, profit to the DDA. No one knows where the money went once we gave it to the DDA. The lighting of the Christmas tree is my pet peeve tonight, and I'm going to let you know why. The heart of Roswell Park will not accommodate the number of people that are going to be there this year after a pandemic of 2 years. No one showed up for 2 years. No one wants it. I know you did a survey and you had 611 yeses, a total of 628 responses. I haven't met one person that said they got the survey, knew the survey, or answered the survey. Did you check zip codes? Did you check if people answered more than once? because it's a joke. The town square has been the gathering place for almost 200 years. We do not need more direct traffic toward Canton Street, precious Canton Street, because it's not going to hold all the people. I sent you some suggestions of what I think should be done. Of course, they were ignored. At queuing 321, get ready for the complaints from the restaurants on Canton Street, because they're not going to have any business that night because it's from 6 to 8 and all the families will fill it up.
Thank you.
Well, just wait for the queue, because they'll be mad, and they're mad about everything.
Who's next? Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Welcome. Since I know it's probably your first time here, please share with us your name and where you live.
Yeah, this is Negar Farah. I'm living at 1020 Woodstock Road. So we are here on behalf of Iranians who lives in the city of Roswell, which approximately it's like 1,000 of them, to get your attention tonight. So we are coming from Iran. Sorry, it's a very sensitive subject to me. Iran was known for poetry, dance, music, food. But now my beloved country, under the control of the Islamic regime, is known for helping tourists. The regime is killing our innocent people, especially during the past 47 days, just because people are saying no to the regime. Women of Iran are not fighting for themselves. They are fighting against dictatorship. They are trying to save the whole world from one of the most dangerous regimes. We are here to get everyone's attention and support to save those people. Our Iranians in Georgia are getting united in front of CNN building every Saturday to spread the word. We are here tonight to ask you all for your love and support, since there are so many Iranians living in this beautiful city, to acknowledge the tragic death of Mahsa Amini and other 200s. There are so many cities, police departments in US that shows their love, including LA, Boston, New York, Texas, Orange County, and Atlanta. We would love to have a peaceful protest, walk, rally in the city of Roswell to show our support to the people of Iran and their families. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. On a personal note, I'm going to ask that if you attend a meeting and there's a speaker up here, whether you agree or disagree with the speaker, that you don't be having another conversation. It's simple courtesy to the person that's speaking. You ask that you want people to listen to you when you come up there, and I ask that you do the same when other people come up there. I think that is just a common courtesy of being in a public meeting. It's up here. It's distracting to me to watch people talking while a speaker is up here. So that's a simple courtesy that I ask of everyone. Please refrain from having a conversation with yourself or with your neighbor while someone's up here. Please show them common courtesy. Thank you. Okay, who's next? Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Mine's really easy compared to everybody else.
Well, we're glad you're here. Tell us your name and where you live.
Oh, my name is Rebecca, and I live on Saddlebrook Terrace in Roswell.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Oh, yeah, so this is real easy stuff. So I was just, had emailed a couple of different people. This was like back, I guess, in May, just about like, so I do a lot of walking in the neighborhood, and just about how like we've noticed so much more trash on the sides of the streets where we walk. And so I messaged a couple of different people, Katie Baker, and then Dan Sarsky.
Dan Skalski, yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
and they both told me they were going to take care of it, but nothing's been done. So this was back in like April or May. So I typically will walk like all around Sweet Apple Elementary, like up and down Crabapple Road, between like maybe Hembry and all the way up to that Kroger on Arnold Mill, and then up and down, like Hardscrabble Road, where they put that new roundabout by Sweet Apple Elementary, down to LA Fitness, to the gym we go to. And there's just like a lot of trash on the sides of the roads down in those areas. And it seems like no one ever comes to clean it up. And even if you're walking like on Crabapple down, heading towards Sweet Apple, You may not always see it right from the road, but if you go on the sidewalk and there's like Saddle Creek subdivision over there, there's trash like all in those trees. And my husband and I walk there with our dogs like every weekend, and we try to pick up what we can while we're walking, but there's a lot. I think it's gotten worse since COVID because maybe people don't want to touch stuff anymore and pick it up while they're walking. And the other thing is that roundabout they put in on hardscrabble. You guys had all those nice, pretty trees planted. They're all pretty much dead. And I've been calling people about that, I guess, since April, because whoever put them in, like some of them weren't even planted. They were literally just put on top of the ground, like not even a hole was dug. And the majority of them are dead now, like it's that whole roundabout on hardscrabble area. And, you know, I don't know who your person was that you hired to supply those trees, but they ripped you off. I mean, half the trees are dead and they didn't do anything to replace them. Whereas if you go down on Rucker Road, where they put their roundabout there, it looks really good. Those trees, whoever did that job did a much better job.
Rebecca, would you be receptive? Do you have time, if we set up a time for myself to come out there with Mr. Knighton and perhaps the Director of Transportation and the liaison for the council? Could you meet us out there to show us this area that you're talking about so we can take a first-hand look at it with you? Okay.
Yeah. You're welcome to join us on our Sunday morning walk with the dogs.
Fantastic. So I'm going to ask Robin, would you exchange information with Rebecca for us, please? And Rebecca, Mayor Wilson at roswellgov.com, she's going to give you that information. You can always send me an email there.
Okay.
But she's going to exchange information. She's going to help set up a meeting right now with your permission.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay?
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Loran Cowan. I live in the Shadowbrook subdivision off of Grimes Bridge Road.
Would you say your first name again for me?
Loran.
Gran?
Loran.
Loran.
Like Duran.
Oh, thanks, Duran. Cool. Thank you. Okay.
Some of us will get that. Anyway, I really wanted to thank you and commend you for putting together the RTAC, because they are about the smartest, most knowledgeable people I have ever met. And I am so glad to have them as a voice for for the city of Roswell. So I appreciate that you did that, but I'm curious to know, I have a couple of questions, but I'm curious to know what the process is from RTAC, how our message is getting to RTAC and then to you, and what is being done to accommodate the public's requests and RTAC's requests.
Public still has, we're your elected representatives, so you're actually coming to us. We created RTAC, just as an overview, as a body to give a resident's perspective specifically on transportation projects. So we appointed other residents to say, here's your purview, here's a series of projects, but obviously you can put in feedback, but the feedback also still comes to us directly. And the Transportation Advisory Commission is an advisory body to the elected representatives of Roswell, the mayor and council.
They just spend a lot of time, lots of hours of time, and I just want to make sure their work is being heard by you. And I understand that you need to hear from us. Actually, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I wasn't really sure what that process was. So thank you for clarifying that. I do know that RDOT comes to all the meetings. I've been to all the meetings. There's a few of us that have been to all the meetings. And I'm curious, I have heard before how RDOT has met with maybe the Cottage School or maybe some of the other schools that are along Grimes Bridge Road to get some their input based on what they would like to see along Grimes Bridge Road. But I'm curious to know where their outreach is to the public, to the people, to the residents along that corridor. As far as I know, there's only been one meeting that was held at the Adult Recreation Center. And we were told that that the public comments were going to be made public so that we could all see them, and we have not seen them. I don't feel like our voices are necessarily being heard. I know you were at one of the meetings and said that you were going to reach out to GDOT. I appreciate that you doing that. I don't know if you all heard Clark Howard's message on WSB radio the other day that kind of blasted GDOT about what he's doing to the Grimes Ridge corridor in Roswell. I have it. If you want me to email it to anyone, please let me know. Happy to forward that on. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about it, if you did hear it.
Council? I mean, we could talk, each one of us could talk for literally 10 hours uninterrupted on this subject. The council is, I know this is going to sound crazy, highly informed and highly engaged on transportation matters. And the council, one of the things that I would say that's different from the past, in the history of the city, is that there's always been a strategic perspective of the ARC and GDOT. I don't know if the city of Roswell has been very good at articulating its strategic transportation perspective. So creating a transportation commission was one piece of that. It wasn't the entire piece. It was just a piece of it. As the elected body, which are the elected leaders of the city as to govern the city. And part of that was just to come up with a master transportation strategy and to articulate that. And that strategy, if it hasn't been heard before, is to continue to facilitate a family-friendly community, which understands that pre-COVID, there were 250,000 cars that literally cut through the city of Roswell. And understanding that we cannot undo many parts of that, i.e. 92, i.e. 140, i.e. Georgia 400. But having an understanding and coming into it and saying, what can we do to start limiting cut-through traffic, which is a much different perspective than the state of Georgia through GDOT has. It's a much different perspective than the Atlanta Regional Commission has, because Roswell is a piece of the puzzle from a transportation perspective. The elected bodies that represent you understand that and are fighting every way they can with all authority they can to try to change a picture that has been drawn for over 20 years for the region and for Roswell. And that many of the transportation projects, of which some of you know and some of you will come to know, are going to go, we don't want that. We agree. The authority and the ability to influence that are things that this council is trying its very best, and mayor trying its very best, to change as much as we can within the actual permits and limits of the law. There are things that we completely agree with you on, but there are things that we do not have the ability to change because they're already done. If the populace can help us change those things, our fellow residents, and they can help change the events of some of the things that have been put in place, albeit, so be it. But some of these things, and there's sometimes, I think, information that doesn't get fully vetted, were voted on by us as well. And some of these things, there were some complicated, intricate deals put together. Most of those deals were public. I was, as a resident, honestly, I didn't pay attention to all those deals. When I became mayor, I've become fully vested in finding out about a lot of details of those deals. Not always happy about them. But I can't tell you the amount of time that this council spends working on transportation, working with RTAC. Now, I will tell you, sometimes RTAC doesn't get its way, or a member of RTAC doesn't get its way. We're going to hear tonight from some members of RTAC, at least one who's unhappy about the Riverside project. The Riverside project was negotiated with RTAC, with RDOT, and the council. It was a negotiation. It was an agreement from different parties. Not everybody got their way on it, but everybody signed off on it, including RTAC. And so I find it funny, you know, we all have rights as free residents and free citizens to say what we want to. But also the other side of the equation is the process was created, RTAC was created to help represent residents. RTAC weighed in significantly on the Riverside project several times, so much so that yours truly pulled it off a committee. It got put in committee twice because I wanted to make sure that RTAC had a full chance to vet it. One member of RTAC is not happy that I know of with the completion and is raising Cain about that. But the rest of the RTAC signed off on the project in conjunction with negotiations with RDOT and the council, which was my request. Is RDOT involved? Is RTAC involved? Have all parties come to an agreement on this? Has there been full vetting on this? So one of the things that I guess I feel a challenge to as a newly elected person, newly elected resident, is that sometimes information gets sold in silos, and it just keeps getting perpetuated and perpetuated and perpetuated, and it's 25% of the picture. In terms of the cut-through piece, we agree with you, and we're doing everything we can. There are some things we have discovered we do not have the legal ability to change.
I'm curious about the process you were talking about, because as far as I know, RDOT I know it's under new leadership now. You're aware City of Roswell is under new leadership, but RDOT and GDOT failed tremendously on this project of communication. So even on Grimes Bridge Road, it wasn't even called Grimes Bridge Road. It was called south of Holcomb Bridge Road. So the residents were never notified. So we could go back to the history and go back to the process. The process was never followed. So was the due diligence actually really done? I don't think so. So I appreciate the fact that City Council and Mayor, you would like to see that happen now, but I can tell you it did not occur back when this project happened. Because I called 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and I was told by City of Roswell, it's a GDOT project. Called GDOT, GDOT said it was an RDOT project. There was no notification to the public at all. No one would fess up, no one had any information to give out. And then here we are.
I'll share with you, I'm mad too about a lot of the things that transpired. And we're trying to figure out what we can do in real ways, meaningful ways to change this and not blow up the whole world. Because there are some things that are in place that have already been agreed to, whether I was there or you were there. I mean, Randy, David, you can speak to some of this, can you not?
So the mayor and council at the time made decisions and agreements with GDOT, which they thought were in the best interests of the public in general. Whether they are or not, that's not for me to decide. That's obviously for the citizens to decide. But at the time, with the information they had, they made the best decisions they could.
I can tell you that the city council member that proposed the Grimes Bridge Road for the bridge no longer lives in Roswell or in Georgia, and I spoke to him personally. He never even drove on Grimes Bridge Road during rush hour. So I don't know, I realize, again, he's a previous city council, he's not even in the state anymore, but now we're living by something that he has put into place. So I could talk for hours about the history because I've been doing this since the day one, and as soon as we found out that south of Holcomb Bridge Road was Grimes Bridge Road, the whole Grimes Bridge Road corridor has come together, and we've been trying really hard. We've met with the mayor, the previous mayor and city council and GDOT and RDOT, and it's like we're hitting our heads against the wall, which is why I was talking about RTAC, who I appreciate so much. And I'm just hoping, we attend it because we know that they're our voice, they're our best way to get to you as because you appointed them. At least that's what I would assume. And as much as we can bombard you individually with emails and calls and text messages or whatever it is, I would think that you would appreciate it more being the information coming mainstreamed from RTAC. Perhaps I'm wrong.
No, we take seriously the consideration of all of our residents. Like it's not just, RTAC has a special purpose. And RTAC's purpose is to bring a resident's perspective, an informed resident's perspective, because I know often as a resident, right, there were a lot of whole things I wasn't informed about. The RTAC members are informed. Doesn't mean they're right, but they are informed. And that is the purpose of appointing people who had a specific knowledge and a lot of interest and a lot of energy to the RTAC. But yes, we still are talking and will continue to talk to our fellow residents about their concerns about transportation projects. There are some things, and I think, that got settled. They got done through the political process. Whether I like it or you like it, it got done previously, and decisions were made. And there are consequences to whether I like that or don't like that. And sometimes you can't undo sometimes past political processes, decisions that have been made, that was done by people that we elected or didn't elect, but they were they were the elected leadership, and they made decisions. And whether or not we agree with all those decisions or not, some of those decisions are in place. And we're unhappy about some of them because we say, well, we didn't have the full transparency. I don't know about you guys. As a resident, we pay very little attention to most of the stuff that happens in our city, right? We really do, honestly. And then when it happens 2 or 3 years later, we say, whoa, I didn't know about that. Or you didn't say, well, and you'll say, well, we had some public meetings. Well, you were busy with your life. I was busy with my life. Probably didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. And it checked the box. And it's infuriating. I hear you. We're working on it. But Big Creek, this whole thing has a lot more antennae to it than just simply the Grimes Bridge piece, right? It goes back to Big Creek Parkway. It goes back to the original design of the Big Creek Parkway. which, by the way, was elected, was voted on by the residents of Roswell. There was a change to that by the elected leadership, and there was a manifestation of consequence to that on this Grimes Bridge piece. I'm with you, completely with you. I don't know what we can get done about it. I really don't. We've been working on it. I don't like to tell people something that's not the truth and say, oh, we're going to get it done. I'm not very confident we can get anything done unless there's a popular uprising and the entire city of population is able to convince the Georgia State Legislature that this will not be done. I don't think that's likely. I don't think it's probable. So I don't like to continue to perpetuate things that I don't think that's basically done. And we can keep raising Cain about it and saying, we don't want it, we don't like it, we don't want it. Well, that's one of the reasons we got a practical matter of getting $10 million to put traffic calming on there. We're going to hear tonight from probably another resident about raising Cain about Oxbow Road. Oxbow Road is a project 15 years in design. It was voted on by the voters, by the way. That project was a mess. And I got to tell you, looking underneath the curtain and going deep diving on this, it's very hard to see any direct correlation behind the scenes. I know people put the puzzle together and say those two are absolutely interlocked. Some people had a grand strategy on it. It looks logical. I know it smells like it. I can't find it. But what I can tell you is what we have done on Oxbow Road is we redirected the plan as much as we could legally. We amended it. We improved it. We got competent with it. We came up with a plan to execute it. And we have a plan for it when it's done. And we're very clear, this entire council and mayor, along with the staff, understand very clear, we do not want to facilitate cut-through traffic on Mimosa Boulevard. We do not want to facilitate more cut-through traffic on Pine Grove. We do not want to facilitate more cut-through traffic on Grimes Bridge as a consequence of Oxbow Road. Everybody here understands that. Everybody here has the same concerns and worries. So please, we're happy to come see you. But I can't tell you that we're going to say, you know what, we're going to solve that problem. And I got to tell you, it's frustrating sometimes to say I can't solve your problem. And I know because I feel the pain in it.
I'll wrap up. I appreciate what you're saying. I will say that I'm right there on Oxbow Road. I actually, it's interfered with my life for the past 3 years because I go that way to bring my kids to school, or did. But I will say, one, the previous RDOT director, there were studies by GDOT, by the way, that put out that there was going to be increased traffic on the Artillery Road.
Arterial roads, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. There was going to be increased traffic caused by these express lanes, and there was going to be increased accidents in front of the Swift School on that intersection of Dogwood. And when we asked him what he proposed...
I'm giving you extra time because I interrupted your time so much.
Oh, okay. Anyway, he said that when it becomes a problem, they'll research it when we asked him for a solution. So he said we'll wait and see until when it's a problem. Well, clearly, GDOT already has the studies and said it's going to be a problem. So also, I would love to hear your ideas. I would love to hear about what Oxbow is all about because that affects me on my daily life. So is there a way to set up like a public meeting with the Grimes Bridge Oxbow corridor to hear what those plans are? Because I haven't seen any. Is there published somewhere?
Yeah, the Oxbow Action Plan is on the website. It's been on the website since April. It's the plan of action of what Oxbow looks like. If you've seen, we do ongoing updates on Oxbow.
Seen them.
And what the published deadline for that execution of that project is. So I think that's been incredibly transparent and public.
I just meant what your goals were, because you were talking about what your goals are for Oxbow Road and how you're going to mitigate traffic coming up that way to use Grimes Bridge Road. That's what I was more interested in.
I think I just said it very publicly on tape in front of a city council meeting in front of all of our residents. Happy to come to meet with citizens and say it in any way that would, in any additional statements you'd like us to make. Absolutely. We'd be happy to come see you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have been coming to the RTAC meetings, and we are very much into the objective of mitigating not just the traffic, the speed of traffic, but also the volume of traffic. So we are on board with that, and we would love, RTAC has come up with some great ideas. RDOT has proposed some, and as long as those meetings continue, as long as they're getting back and we're being heard, we appreciate that. We just want to make sure our voices are actually being heard.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Duran. Duran, correct?
Loran with an L.
Loran. Oh, my gosh, sorry. I got to change that. Thanks, Loran. Who would like to go next? Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm Deborah Zink. I live on Grimes Bridge Landing, so I'm very much involved in the discussion about the Grimes Bridge Road corridor. I want to thank you also for what you've done with offering the RTAC group to us. It has been a much more resident-friendly, neighborhood-friendly, less intimidating body for us to express our concerns to and to feel like we're heard, where they're focused on this, these issues solely, the Riverside Corridor, the Grimes Bridge Corridor, and so forth. It's been very, very effective. We just hope that you are going to listen to them. We've given them feedback on alternatives. Grimes Bridge Landing is right in the middle of coming downhill Grimes Bridge Road and where you're coming in a big curve up from Shadowbrook. And there's a stoplight at Shadowbrook and a stoplight at Vickery Creek. And the consensus, it's not a majority, it's not unanimous, but I think our neighborhood is focused much more on putting a stoplight at Grimes Bridge Landing as the best mitigation that we can do to try to help us get in and out of our neighborhood. We have said we don't want a roundabout. We would like for you to accept our feedback to RTAC that we'd like to see that money spent on the improvements along the road. When you're walking down the sidewalk to go down towards Oxbow into the park, I'm uncomfortable walking on that sidewalk, and I'm uncomfortable trying to walk my dog. There are children that run track. There are people with. We'd like for that to be wide. We'd like for that. Which
road?
On Grimes Bridge Road.
On Grimes Bridge.
We'd like for that to be wide. We'd like to have safe. The multi-use path is to go on the south side, which is the side that Grimes Bridge Landing is on, but we'd like for that to be wide. We'd like it to be landscaped if possible. We'd like for there to be nice curbs and do what you can to narrow the traffic in there, narrow the path for the traffic flow. I'm interested also, we haven't had any discussion about traffic calming measures on Oxbow. We've talked about, and we've had a meeting, the one public meeting back in the spring about traffic calming on Grimes Bridge, which we'd like to see. We'd like to see I've forgotten the rumble lines. We'd like to see anything that narrows the road, any landscaping. Again, we don't want roundabouts. Nobody on that street wants roundabouts, and we'd like to see that money spent in other ways and expanding the safety of the multi-use trails and the sidewalks along there. And I think some consideration of traffic calming through Oxbow. I mean, there are only a couple of little communities on that street. I'm not sure that they've been heard from. I'm not sure it's been a long time probably since they've been asked. But that is about a 1.25 mile and a half stretch of road that's going to be flying through there, where there is park. And I think we would serve ourselves well to do some traffic calming through there as well as on Grimes Bridge. But we hope that you will take with all seriousness the input that we're giving to RTAC, because there are a number of us who have been attending all of those meetings. We're very involved with them. We're giving them a lot of feedback because we think that is our clearest avenue to let you know what we want for our neighborhood, for the commitment to try to keep that area a family-friendly area and as safe as we can make it, knowing that we're probably going to have to live with a lot of what's coming. And
Deborah, I think the council, myself, maybe let me speak for myself. I'll be happy to bring myself and our brand new transportation director and Mr. Knighton, among others, along with 2 council people. We'd love to come speak to your community and come here, particularly based upon some specific recommendations, because we do have $10 million that is specifically earmarked for traffic calming on this. And I want to make sure that we do here specifically with great clarity. RTAC does have a huge role, but it's not the only role. And so you as a community still have a very specific role. RTAC's got a lot to do, quite frankly. RTAC has a lot of projects on their piece. And I want to make sure that we are hearing from you directly, because RTAC does play a role, but so do you as a very dedicated part of our community. So I think we would be happy to come see you and come get some specifics. I can tell you on Oxbow, Dave, do you want to address the Oxbow measures? Because there's a lot of traffic calming measures on Oxbow Road, and they're in some of the videos, but there will be, I'm going to tell you, everybody on this council and everybody on this staff, we talk about it all the time, has clarity. We say we cannot muck up Oxbow Road. We know with great clarity that when Oxbow Road opens up, it cannot become a high-speed facilitator of more traffic through our city. We're with you 110%.
No, I think that's exactly right. I just had another thought, and I've kind of forgotten what it was, but
I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
it'll come to me. I'll share it with you when we can have a meeting. I appreciate that offer.
So, Robin, are you still here? Yes, ma'am. Would you trade information with Robin?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. And to the other young lady, Loran, same group, I'm assuming? Yes, ma'am? Thank you. Okay, who's next? I'm gonna take the young man in the back. I saw him first. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Welcome, sir. Please share with us your name.
Yeah, my name is Sanjay Khetan. I'm a Roswell resident. I live in Crabapple Lake Park subdivision. My complaint is that we need to install some more stop signs. The reason is that every evening there is a bunch of cyclists. They come in groups of from 10 to 30, and they never stop, and they create a kind of a big melee. Our subdivision is full of children, toddlers to like children, and it becomes kind of an issue because they just come through the Crabapple Lake Drive and go through the Baywood Drive and get out of in front of the Etris Road. It's about a mile and a half pathway in our subdivision, and they never slow down. They shout at people if somebody is standing on the road. People walk, and children are playing, and it's kind of a little bit kind of a dangerous situation. Dangerous in the sense like if they mostly it is danger for them, not for us as much, because if anybody falls, I don't want anybody to be injured. And they don't have any respect for the residents. They shout, and they think that it's their right to cycle in somebody else's neighborhood. They don't live in our neighborhood, and the neighborhoods are not for cycling in group. So we need to, my recommendation is that we need to put some stop signs so that they follow the rule and stop their cycles in between.
Will you tell me your neighborhood again, sir?
Crabapple Lake Park.
Thank you, sir.
It's just across the Sweet Apple Elementary School and Sweet Apple Park.
Just to clarify, you're talking about bicyclists, not motorcyclists.
Bicyclists, yeah, definitely not motorcyclists.
Crabapple Lake Park.
Yes.
Would you change information with Robin, and we'll follow up on it? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the one point I want to make, because about a couple of years ago, we tried to put divider in between, like the sign in the middle of the road, but that created more trouble because when the cars are coming and somebody's parking there, some of the signs got knocked off. So I think putting a stop sign in a couple of places will help, the speed of the traffic, as well as it will also, force the cyclists to stop in those, stop signs. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Welcome.
For listening to all of us. Just as a warning, my name is Jessica Bowman. I'm also on Grimes Bridge Road. I wanted to add something to what Robin said, and that one of the motivations, so I've attended most of the RTAC meetings. I'm also one of...
Can I interrupt you? I don't have a Robin.
I'm sorry, Deborah.
Deborah, okay.
Yes, I apologize.
All right, no problem, thanks.
So I've attended to most of the RTAC meetings, and I've also been involved in this group. And a few weeks ago, we were on a Zoom call with about 30 residents on Grimes Bridge Landing, on Grimes Bridge Road, and Shadowbrook, and Vickery Creek, and Heatherton, all these neighborhoods. And some of them were crammed multiple neighbors per Zoom call participant. So this tells you we may have probably, I'm guessing, 30, 40 households probably, and everyone was talking about what we want to do on Grimes Bridge Road. So just so you know, the neighbors are very engaged. I know you know this already, but this is just a small number of us that are here tonight. There are many more that are very engaged in this process, and we've all been funneling comments to RTAC with the confidence that their input is going to be taken very seriously. So on that note, what I wanted to do is to thank Mayor and Council for formation of the Transportation Advisory Commission. I know that the city is more than 40 square miles, and you can't possibly be familiar enough with every neighborhood and community to view the needs from the perspective of the residents. I think RTAC was a very smart approach because it reaches farther into the community and to more residents than Mayor and Council could do alone, and allows the residents to give input into projects at the stage of project conception, which is, I think, very important, and that's what the last administration didn't do well. This particular group of RTAC members is, from my experience, very professional, with a great range of backgrounds and expertise that care about the city immensely, and they spend an immense amount of time, their own time, on a strictly volunteer basis to help Mayor and Council get things right for the city residents. Not for GDOT or for Cobb County residents that are coming through, but for the city of Roswell residents. So I just want to acknowledge the amount of time they've spent listening to differing opinions from individual neighbors, coordinating and meeting with neighborhood groups, driving and walking corridors, reviewing materials prepared by other RTAC members, researching transportation guidelines and standards, developing options and recommendations that reflect the sentiment of the residents, myself included, and developing presentations to deliver back to Mayor and Council and to the public. I think they're doing a stellar job, and I just want to acknowledge it and thank them for that. What is not clear to me is what happens after RTAC delivers their comments, their recommendations to Mayor and Council. I know you referenced some of that earlier when you're speaking with Loran, but I don't know if there's nothing on the website that I can find. There's no formal process. There's no procedure for how those comments should be considered. For example, do you give them back to RDOT and ask RDOT to work with RTAC to reconcile the comments? I don't know. So I guess this is a request for clarification in some formal manner of what that process should be going forward.
Jessica, let me say, number one, that you're exactly right, is that the members of RTAC spend a lot of time and energy and they're tremendously committed to doing the right thing for our city, and they're to be commended to a man and woman. The second thing is RTAC is a new creation of this Mayor and Council, as you well know. I will tell you that from an overarching perspective, we've had a lot of priorities this year. One of them that we have not attached to is boards and commissions and establishing the same protocols inside those boards and commissions. RTAC will have that same piece. We haven't gotten to that piece yet, quite frankly, because we need to create an operational architecture for all the boards and commissions in our city, including RTAC. So we've been talking about that, saying at some point, not 2022, we were going to get that. However, there has the level of engagement and communication, what I will tell you publicly, that is privately happening between the mayor's office and RTAC is dramatic. So nobody in RTAC can say that they're not spending a lot of time with the mayor's office. They're spending a lot of time with the mayor's office. I think that is true also with the council. What we have started is a process which RTAC will soon get, is that we're going to ask RTAC to start voting on things. So RTAC, as a formal body itself, needs to start voting on things like a commission or board so that it gets voted out before it gets sent out, before it gets presented. One of the challenges we've had is the disparate nature of information that comes out of RTAC. And so it comes out in disparate ways rather than in a monolithic form and saying, this is our position. So going forward, we're going to ask RTAC to vote formally on the things they're working on, saying, this is our recommendation, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one other slightly separate topic. Is that all right if I veer
yes,
to a
ma'am.
separate topic?
Sure time.
Okay. I would also like to ask about the new east-west connectivity planned for the Georgia 400 Express Lane Bridge. Much has been said in the last 2 years. I know you said you're very vested in this topic, and everyone's discussed the Georgia 400 Express Lane access point. However, there has not been very much conversation that I'm aware of anyway, about the east-west connectivity component of that bridge. A new east-west connectivity point so very close to Holcomb Bridge Road will provide a significantly shorter path for cut-through traffic moving between Holcomb Bridge on the east side of Roswell and 120 via Oxbow Road. A path that will take cut-through individuals past about 50 residential driveways, 2 schools, special needs for special needs children, a daycare center, and heavily used pedestrian and park areas. It's my understanding that Roswell, not GDOT, asked for the east-west connectivity element of the Express Lane Bridge. Public notices, public input, and public hearings were held by GDOT about the Express Lane access point itself. I participated in those. However, best I recall, one had to be able to read a traffic diagram in order to interpret that east-west connectivity was included in that access point. Many members of the public, including at least one individual running for council for Zapata's seat, has recently still not been aware that this bridge will include east-west access. My question is this: was Roswell required to go through the normal public notice, public hearing, and comment period specifically for the east-west connectivity element of GDOT's direct access ramp? And if not, under what basis was it excluded from that process?
So I think there's so much to unpack in your question. That's one of the problems we have in some of these transportations. We take one little piece of it, and that when we're not dealing with the overarching perspective of what we have to deal with, go back to the original east-west connectivity project, right? Big Creek Parkway. You and I voted on that, right? You and I passed it.
Yes.
Big Creek Parkway in its original conception. Previous mayor and council found out that the Holcomb Bridge Interchange project was DOA with GDOT. They considered that a priority. So they took $15 million out of the Big Creek Parkway project, basically turned it south on the west side to save $15 million, put $15 million to the DDI, Diverging Diamond Interchange, Holcomb Bridge Interchange, i.e. east-west, additional east-west connectivity to some degree in some people's minds because it's facilitating more traffic between the east and the west. I'm not saying, there's a lot of pieces to this equation. When you ask a question in the silo light, there's a lot of pieces to the equation of way how some other people previously came to a conclusion. As a consequence of that, the GDOT wanted the managed lanes to come off of Big Creek Parkway. The east side of the city said no. The elected political people at that time said, you're right, we're not going to do that. When the Diamond DDI came into life and GDOT moved it up and said, okay, we'll do it, you're giving us $15 million, that's how the managed lanes exits came off of Grimes Bridge. That was the deal basically in its essence, as I have come to understand. There is east-west connectivity that you could argue, and I'm not arguing for it or against it. I'm just saying you can make logic that particularly on the east side, with the way the ramp comes off, that you could say there is some connectivity to it. I am not arguing for that. I want to be clear. But the specific nature of your question, Dave, do you want to answer that very specific question that she's asking? But I just want to be clear. When you're talking east-west connectivity, there's a lot of pieces to this equation. And you have to go back to the beginning. There was an east-west connectivity plan. It was Big Creek Parkway. Mayor and council and GDOT, right, through a deal to get the DDI, changed that, in my mind, as a resident, and now as an elected official. Rightly or wrongly, right? And that's where we stand today. And as a consequence, the managed lanes got moved to Grimes Bridge. Dave, you want to answer her question specifically?
My question?
Yeah, I might have you repeat it.
Okay.
To Mayor, to your point regarding the connectivity on the east-west on the Grimes Bridge Road, the South Bridge, originally GDOT had proposed that would be sole access to the toll lane, the ramps. At the request of the city of Roswell, we wanted east-west connectivity across the bridge, and furthermore, we requested that they include a multi-use trail on the bridge. That would be the first time GDOT's ever done that. So we wanted to have both bike ped connectivity and vehicular connectivity on that bridge roadway. So that's part of the question.
Which would have been awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great project.
Did I answer your question? Was there a second part to that?
So the other part of the question was, so there, you made this request to add the east-west connectivity, not just for the multi-use path, but also for vehicles. So you talked about, we voted on east-west connectivity at Big Creek a long time ago.
We voted on Big Creek Parkway.
Yes, Big Creek Parkway, but my point is that this bridge, this new bridge south of Holcomb Bridge Road on Grimes Bridge Road is not just an access ramp for 400 express lanes. It is also a new east-west connectivity point connecting East Roswell with West Roswell. And it is because of its proximity, parallel proximity to Holcomb Bridge Road, it is going to be a very convenient alternate route to Holcomb Bridge Road, which carries 10,000 plus cars per day, right?
Which road are you talking about?
Holcomb Bridge Road carries 10,000 cars a day.
Holcomb Bridge Road, at its highest point, it carries over 60,000.
Okay, I was way off.
It's okay. I get it. There's a lot of information. It's easy to be. You're right. So yes, ma'am.
So my question was a separate public notification process required in order to add that east-west connectivity to the bridge, to the new bridge at Grimes Bridge Road? Because that was not clear from the Georgia 400 Express Lane project.
Thank you.
Advertising.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for clarifying. I would have to go back and check the time frame of that request, because one of the key elements is when GDOT held the public information open house. That was at the Doubletree Hotel, there, that hotel up on the hill there on Dogwood
The
Road.
famous Doubletree Hotel meeting, yes.
Yeah, so that meeting, I'd have to go back and check if their schematics had that east-west connectivity. I believe it did, but I'd have to go back and confirm that was part of their open house project, because they had multiple public meetings, one in Roswell, one in Sandy Springs, Alpharetta, and Forsyth County. But I have to go back and look at those graphics just to be sure. So I don't want to give you bad information.
Look,
So I can look into that.
Jessica, I can tell you, and I get in trouble for saying things all the time. I'll get in trouble again and say tonight. I love the original Big Creek Parkway project in its original design. I thought it was the right project. The original project, to me, in its original design, was true east-west connectivity. It was in the right place of the city. It made sense. I was an elected official. I wasn't involved in politics. I don't know why the managed lanes were such a big exit off that, but they were for some of our residents. And that's what the state recommended at the time. But politically, we caved on that in the city. And so the managed lanes didn't come off of Big Creek Parkway. And as you know, there was the DDI, the Diverging Diamond, the Holcomb Bridge Interchange. The city wanted that deal. For whatever reason, the city wanted that. Took $15 million of Big Creek Parkway, just to be clear, took it from east-west connectivity. I call it east-south connectivity on the west side. It's really what it is. And as a consequence, somehow these managed lanes got moved ostensibly to, and they weren't called Grimes Bridge originally, to Grimes Bridge. That is where we are today. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. And nobody's happy about this. I get it. And I don't like sounding helpless. I don't know what we can get done about it. I remember saying that at the RTAC meeting. I went and talked to the commissioner face to face. Dave Cox was in the room. Randy Knight was in the room. David Davis in the room. Lee Hills was in the room. Michael Palermo was in the room. I can tell you, commissioner wasn't real pleased with my perspective representing the city, because that's my job, is to represent the city in the best way that I know how. I didn't get a damn thing done at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I didn't achieve a damn thing for this city. And I don't want to, and that's my concern, is I don't know what I can get done for this city in this project, because it's basically a done deal. The ship has sailed in the state's mind. Yes, ma'am.
This is exactly why I'm asking this question. You're asking what can get done. I'm asking if you can remove east-west connectivity, to be very blunt.
I don't have a good answer to that. That would be something we'd have to request from GDOT to see if that's still feasible or a possibility at this time. I don't think it would affect the structures of their bridge, so I would have something we could talk about.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Dave? I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot, because I am putting you on the spot. I apologize. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, it's something that could be considered. I know previous administrations had talked about promoting east-west connectivity through multiple avenues, whether it was Big Creek, the reconstruction of the DDI at Holcomb Bridge, as you alluded to earlier. and also this new bridge located off of Grimes Bridge connecting over to Market Boulevard. So those are all sold as very positive outcomes for the city, increasing, doubling basically the numbers of lanes connecting East and West Roswell. So it's a very positive thing in its day, and that's why it was done approximately 3 or 4 years ago.
David, did you want to say anything?
Dave just said it. I think at the time, the belief amongst the council was the biggest issue in Roswell was the east-west divide. And Holcomb Bridge Road Bridge over 400 was the only way to get across from east to west. They did the T-Splosh project for Big Creek project. It was said that it was only going to be a local road. That's what was promised by council. When T-Splosh got passed, council said, yes, we got it. And then GDOT came in literally very quickly and said, hey, we're going to put managed lanes, we're going to get them off and put exit ramps on Big Creek. Council said, absolutely not. We promised people that we were going to have a local access road. And so they went to work, and I don't know what all happened, but they came up with a $15 million plan, and then the thought at the time was the biggest problem is connectivity across 400. If we can get more connectivity to the south, more to the north, it'll alleviate some of the issues on Holcomb Bridge, and it's good for the city. And that was the thinking at the time.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. I just want to acknowledge that we didn't have a chance to vote on east-west connectivity on the south side. I mean, you talked about, somebody promised somebody there's no access to the express lanes to Big Creek Parkway, but we didn't have a chance to provide input at that point on whether or not there's east-west connectivity south of Holcomb Bridge Road. And there's already also another east-west connectivity point, what, less than half a mile down the street? Is that right? Half a mile.
I
down
got
the
to
street.
cut you off. I'm sorry, Jessica. I apologize. No,
I
no,
appreciate
thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you very much. And your point's well taken. All right, who's next? Yes, ma'am.
Marissa Pereira, a resident of Vickery Creek subdivision. I didn't intend to talk today, but I want to clarify that there are certain realities that I think we're missing, convoluted between the express lanes, Grimes Bridge Road, Big Creek Parkway. Big Creek Parkway was already a done deal. And mayor and council, past mayor and council decided they're not going to touch it. We're okay with that. What we're saying, and the point that Jessica was making earlier, is that with the express lanes, Roswell, city of Roswell, asked for east-west connectivity, not GDOT. So what can Roswell do to make sure that Grimes Bridge Road is not a thoroughfare for cut-through traffic for the east and west Roswell? Another point, so that's one point, right? And this is what Roswell can do, not what GDOT can do. Another point I'd like to make is that there is, given that you're just saying that there's this great big diamond on Holcomb Bridge Road, which is great. I mean, okay, you're supposed to be flowing traffic much better, right? All right, now you've got this greater flow of traffic. You've got Big Creek Parkway, which supposedly the East wanted. So that's going to be east-west connectivity. There is another east-west connectivity down by Riverside Road, which we all use. So in a half-mile space, you're having not taking into consideration Big Creek Parkway to the north of us. So you've got Holcomb Bridge. You're creating one parallel within not even a quarter of a mile. Right there, you're creating a second one, and then you've got a third one within half a mile. So you've got three connectivity. It's not necessary. So I understand that the whole point of the last mayor and council, in conjunction with RDOT, was supposed to be to just flow traffic through, and decided to put it on our street, Grimes Bridge Road. But it is not necessary. Is there a question about what I'm talking about in terms of understanding the difference between Grimes Bridge Road east-west connectivity that was requested by specifically Roswell and RDOT versus the express lanes that was requested and put in place because Big Creek Parkway was not an option? Is there a question in regards to the difference? I'm asking. Mayor?
Do you have any further comments?
No, I'm asking if there's a question because we've been mixing it all up. And so I wanted to clarify that it's not one and the same thing. It's GDOT has put something in place. City of Roswell and RDOT has put something in place, and we understand GDOT's not willing to budge. We're asking what can Mayor and Council do for what Roswell has put in place.
Do you have any further comments, Ms. Pereira?
No.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? All right, thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody, for your coming up, and we appreciate everybody's remarks very much. We'll now go to the city attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel, litigation, and real estate.
Let's see. Is there a motion on the go into closure?
Motion to.
Motion to go to closure.
Motion by Dr. Vanstrom. There's a seconded by Councilmember Hall. All in favor of going to closure? Please raise your hands. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Being there are no other items, this open forum mayor and council meeting of November 1st, 2022 is adjourned.